Have you ever woken up one day and felt like something inside you was different? Not loud, not obvious. Just a quiet shift, like the subtle click of a lock opening from the inside. Most people ignore that feeling. They brush it off as just a good mood, or one of those mornings. But if you've been feeling this often, you might not just be having a good day. You might be experiencing the first signs that your frequency, the invisible vibration that radiates from your state of being, is rising. Think of frequency like an unseen radio signal. We're constantly transmitting and receiving. Every emotion, thought, and belief is like a frequency that either pulls certain experiences toward us or pushes them away. It's not about magical thinking or wishful fantasies. It's about energetic alignment. The way your inner state shapes the outer reality. Most people stay tuned to the same frequency their entire lives. But then something happens, a moment of clarity, a quiet awakening, a spark of something bigger. And that's when the signs begin to show. Sign number 1 isn't some loud miracle or flashy event. It's subtle, and yet, when you notice it, you can't unsee it. It's the feeling that the world around you is no longer as heavy as it once was. Things that used to bother you don't stick as much anymore. You still feel emotions. Of course. You're human. But they don't anchor you down like they used to. Anger comes but doesn't stay. Sadness passes through you like a storm that no longer finds a place to settle. That's not numbness. That's expansion. Imagine your frequency like a room filled with fog. When the fog is thick, everything seems gray, unclear, and close. But as the fog thins, you start to see things with greater clarity and distance. That's what happens when your frequency rises. You're not escaping reality. You're simply perceiving it from a higher vantage point, and from that view, problems don't disappear. They shrink. One of the most unmistakable signs is how you respond to triggers. Maybe in the past, a single comment could ruin your entire day. Now, it barely dents your mood. Or you pause before reacting as if something inside you is whispering, "This isn't worth your energy anymore." That quiet voice isn't weakness. It's your vibration lifting above the frequency of reactivity. You're no longer dancing to the old rhythm of emotional chaos. You've changed stations, but here's the beautiful, and sometimes unsettling, part. When your frequency rises, the external world doesn't always applaud at first. Sometimes it tests you. Old patterns might come back, almost like life is asking, "Are you sure you've outgrown this?" And that's where many people misunderstand their awakening. They think, if my vibration is rising, shouldn't life become easier immediately? Not quite. A rising frequency doesn't erase contrast. It changes your relationship with it. This is where contrast framing reveals its power. The old triggers return not to break you, but to confirm your evolution. You no longer collapse when old storms blow through. You stand in the middle of the wind and realize you're no longer the same. And that realization alone is a sign of rising frequency. Another subtle shift, you'll notice your environment starts responding to you differently. Conversations that once drained you now feel shallow, not because you're judging others, but because you're craving depth. You begin to outgrow situations, habits, or relationships that once felt like home. It's not about superiority, it's about resonance. Just like how two musical notes either harmonize or clash, frequencies either align or drift apart. When your frequency rises, some things simply fall away, naturally, quietly, gracefully. You might notice certain people growing distant, not because of drama, but because your vibration no longer matches the old dynamic. And at first, this can feel lonely. But here's the key truth: what falls away creates space for what truly resonates. You stop chasing alignment. You start becoming it. And as you rise, your reality begins to rearrange around your new state. This is not about putting on a fake smile or forcing positive vibes. True frequency elevation isn't performative. It's internal. It's quiet. It happens when your nervous system learns to rest in expansion instead of contraction. When your heart opens more often than it closes. When your thoughts become lighter, not because life is perfect, but because your perception is evolving. You may also start feeling time differently. Moments that used to feel rushed or stressful begin to flow with more ease. You catch yourself breathing slower, walking with more presence, noticing details that used to blur into the background. The sky seems more vibrant. A stranger's smile lands deeper. You feel life not just passing by you, but moving through you. But make no mistake, this isn't a permanent high. No one is permanently at a peak frequency. Even those who vibrate higher still face challenges. The difference is they stop identifying with the storm. Instead of being inside the wave, they become the ocean. That's the quiet power of frequency rising. So if you've been feeling like your old worries are losing their grip, like something inside you is breathing freer, like the fog is slowly clearing, you're not imagining it. That's your first sign. This is where it begins. The subtle shifts that change everything without making noise. You won't get a big announcement. No flashing lights. Just a quiet knowing that you are not who you were yesterday. And that knowing is enough to alter everything. One of the clearest signs your frequency is rising is the way your inner world begins to feel louder than the outer one. Not in a chaotic way, in a way that feels alive. Think back to the moments when life felt like it was happening to you. Like you were just reacting to one thing after another, constantly pulled by the noise of the world. But then, slowly something shifts. The noise begins to fade, and you start hearing a different sound. A quiet voice. A feeling of inner certainty. A clarity that isn't coming from outside. That's your higher frequency. Steady, calm, and unwavering even when everything around you moves fast. Sign number 2 often begins as this quiet internal clarity. You may notice yourself pausing more before making decisions. You start to feel an inner pull toward what's right for you, and just as strongly, a push away from what isn't. Before, you might have second-guessed yourself 100 times. Now, there's less noise. It's not about having all the answers. It's about trusting the one inside you. This isn't arrogance. It's alignment. When your frequency rises, you stop trying to control everything outside of you and start mastering the energy inside of you. And that shift, it changes everything. People who once felt unsure suddenly start glowing with quiet confidence. They make decisions with ease. They move through uncertainty without panic, because their compass has shifted from external validation to internal resonance. One of the most common experiences people describe during this stage is the feeling that things are just clicking into place. It's not luck. It's alignment. You're tuning into a frequency where resistance starts to loosen its grip, where opportunities seem to appear in the right place at the right time. But here's the key. Those opportunities were always there. The only thing that changed was your frequency, and now you can actually see them. It's like tuning a radio. When you're on the wrong frequency, you hear static. But when you dial into the right station, the music was never missing. You just couldn't hear it before. That's what rising frequency does. It doesn't give you more. It reveals more of what was already around you. You may also notice how your body responds differently. Tension that once felt constant starts to soften. Your breath deepens without effort. You begin to crave stillness more than noise. Instead of escaping into distractions, you start seeking presence. Instead of running from your emotions, you allow them to move through you. It's not because you've become perfect. It's because your energy is expanding. But with this new clarity comes something else, a shedding. A gentle, sometimes uncomfortable unraveling of old layers. Rising frequency isn't always a blissful ride. It often comes with letting go. Old beliefs, old stories, even old identities that once felt like you start to crack open. And that can feel disorienting at first. Like standing between two worlds. The one you've outgrown and the one you're stepping into. This is the point where many people mistake growth for loss. They say, "Why do I feel like I'm losing everything?" When in truth, what's falling away is everything that can't come with them to the next level. It's like carrying a heavy backpack up a mountain. At some point, you realize to keep climbing, you must let go of the weight. This shedding isn't punishment. It's a sign of elevation. You'll notice how your tolerance for certain energies decreases. Gossip, drama, fear-based conversations that once hooked your attention suddenly feel hollow. You might find yourself craving silence where you once craved noise. You might sit alone and feel more connected than you ever did in a crowded room. And that's a powerful sign. Because frequency doesn't rise through the noise of the world. It rises in the stillness between. Your inner world becomes the source, not the echo. Another beautiful shift that happens here is how you begin to notice synchronicities. Patterns. Meaningful coincidences that seem too precise to be random. The right message at the right time. A stranger saying exactly what you needed to hear. A door closing only for another better one to open days later. Some call it luck. Some call it the universe. But whatever name you give it, what's really happening is resonance. When your frequency rises, you align with experiences that match it. It's like striking a tuning fork. It vibrates, and other forks tuned to the same pitch begin to sing too. You don't have to chase alignment anymore. You attract it. But this doesn't mean every moment will feel magical. Sometimes, the signs come quietly. Sometimes synchronicity looks like a challenge that forces you to step fully into your power. The difference is in your response. Before, You might have seen the challenge as proof you were stuck. Now you see it as an initiation, a doorway, a signal that the next level is calling, and perhaps the most profound shift of all in this stage, your relationship with fear changes. Fear doesn't disappear, but it stops driving the car. You learn to feel it, acknowledge it, and still choose alignment. When your frequency rises, fear becomes a background sound, not the lead voice. And when that happens, your entire life begins to expand. Rising frequency isn't about becoming untouchable, it's about becoming unshakable. You stop needing external proof to trust your inner knowing. You stop clinging to outcomes and start dancing with possibilities. You start trusting the timing of your life, even when you can't see the whole path. If you've been feeling this quiet clarity, if you've noticed that your inner voice has grown louder than the world's noise, that coincidences are weaving into your days, that old weights are quietly falling away, you're not imagining it. It's not a phase. It's a sign. Your frequency is rising. And this is only the beginning. Because the higher your frequency rises, the less you need to force things. Life begins to feel like a current you can float with, instead of a battle you have to fight. You begin to trust the flow, and the flow in return begins to trust you. There's a moment in this journey where something profound happens. Your outer world starts mirroring your inner evolution more clearly than ever before. Not subtly, not quietly, almost like reality itself is adjusting its lens to match your new vibration. That's sign number 3, your external environment begins to shift in response to your internal state. For most of your life, it might have felt like the outside world was in control, like circumstances dictated your mood, your pace, your power. But when your frequency begins to rise, this power dynamic flips. You begin to realize that your energy leads and the external follows. What once felt like random events starts to feel like a reflection of your vibration. The people, opportunities, and experiences that show up around you start to mirror your inner frequency with stunning precision. You might notice how spaces feel different. Rooms that once drained you now feel unbearable to stay in for too long. Environments that once felt fine now feel heavy, like a frequency mismatch. And then there are places where your entire being feels lighter, clearer, almost like you're being gently pulled forward. That's not your imagination, that's resonance. The same happens with people. Certain conversations that once felt normal suddenly sound like static. You feel less inclined to engage in meaningless drama, less drawn to old stories, less comfortable around energy that doesn't align with your expansion. It's not that you've become superior. You've simply outgrown a certain frequency range. Just like how a bird doesn't judge the ground for being the ground, it just flies. But this stage can be bittersweet, because rising frequency often means outgrowing people, places, and versions of yourself you once loved deeply. And that can hurt. You may find yourself letting go of friendships that no longer nourish your soul, even if they once defined your identity. You might walk away from environments that feel too small for the person you're becoming. It's not betrayal. It's evolution. And here's where contrast framing plays a powerful role again. The discomfort you feel during this shedding isn't proof that something's wrong. It's proof that something's changing. Just like how a seed breaks its shell before it becomes a tree, your life must crack in places to make room for growth. During this stage, many people experience a strange mix of clarity and loneliness. You know you're on the right path, but some days it feels like no one else can quite understand what you're going through. This is one of the most sacred parts of the journey, because it's where you learn to anchor your frequency from within, not from external approval. When your frequency rises, you no longer need everyone to understand you. You start valuing authenticity over belonging. You realize that you were never meant to fit into every room. You were meant to resonate in the right ones. And then something beautiful begins to happen. As you hold this new frequency, new people appear. Soul-aligned connections. Encounters that feel like they've been waiting for you. These aren't just random friendships or opportunities. They're energetic matches. And you don't have to chase them. They arrive naturally because your frequency has become a beacon. Your daily experiences shift too. Maybe traffic that used to send you spiraling now feels like an invitation to breathe. A conversation that might have triggered you in the past now becomes an opportunity to respond with presence. You may even notice that your relationship with time begins to soften. Instead of feeling constantly rushed or behind, you begin to feel synchronized, as if life and you are finally moving in rhythm. This shift is powerful because it's not something you can fake. You can pretend to be positive. You can act spiritual or calm, but frequency doesn't respond to appearances. It responds to your state. When your vibration rises, reality reflects it whether you try or not. You'll start noticing small but meaningful alignments. You think of someone and they call. You feel drawn to a new opportunity and it shows up the next day. A door closes and almost immediately another opens. It's not coincidence, it's coherence. But here's the truth: many people overlook this stage isn't just about ease. The universe won't stop sending you contrast. But instead of resistance, contrast becomes guidance. Challenges don't feel like punishment anymore. They feel like signals showing you where your frequency still has room to expand. Imagine you're tuning an instrument. If a string is off, it doesn't mean the music is broken. It just means it's time to fine-tune. Rising frequency works the same way. Whenever life feels slightly off, it's not a failure, it's feedback. This is also where self-responsibility deepens. When your frequency is low, it's easy to blame everything outside of you. But as your frequency rises, blame starts to feel foreign. You begin to understand that everything is a mirror. Not everything is your fault, but everything reflects something. That understanding doesn't make life easier in the traditional sense, but it makes it clearer. You become the conscious conductor of your vibration. You start aligning your energy before you act, rather than reacting after the fact. And that one shift changes your entire relationship with the world. You'll find yourself naturally protecting your peace more. Not because you're hiding, but because you understand the value of your frequency. You stop pouring your energy into battles that aren't yours to fight. You stop trying to prove your worth to spaces that can't feel your light. Instead, you cultivate it quietly, powerfully, and intentionally. And when you hold your frequency like that, steady, clear, strong, your reality bends to meet it. Doors open where there were walls. Opportunities flow where there was once resistance. And perhaps most importantly, your external world begins to feel less like something you have to survive and more like something you can shape. This is sign number 3 in its purest form. Your life starts to mirror your inner state with breathtaking precision. And when you realize this is happening, when you truly see it, you'll never look at reality the same way again. There's a quiet turning point in this journey, a moment where you realize you're no longer just reacting to the world around you. You're co-creating with it. That's the 4th and 5th sign of a rising frequency, and together, they form the most powerful shift of all, a deeper connection to life itself. The 4th sign often begins as a subtle sense of inner peace that doesn't depend on external conditions. In the past, your mood may have risen or fallen, depending on what was happening outside of you. Good day, good mood. Bad day, bad mood. But when your frequency rises, something changes. You start carrying your own atmosphere with you. Even on days when things don't go your way, there's a steadiness within, not a fake smile, not denial, a quiet knowing that no storm is bigger than your center. It's like you're standing at the eye of a hurricane, calm, grounded, clear, even as the winds swirl around you. And this is where real energetic mastery begins. Because when you no longer let the external world dictate your state, you start to shape it. A higher frequency doesn't make life perfect. It makes you powerful in the face of imperfection. You may notice how others react differently to your presence. People feel safer around you. They may tell you, there's just something about your energy. They can't always name it, but they can feel it. Because frequency isn't something you talk about. It's something you radiate. Your words may soften, your patience deepen, your reactions slow down. You find yourself giving more grace to others and to yourself. And that's when the true magic happens. Your energy begins to lead. People mirror your calm. Situations bend around your steadiness. Life starts to follow your vibration, not the other way around. It's here that a 5th, unmistakable sign begins to reveal itself. One that many describe as flow. A sense that life is working with you, not against you. You may find yourself feeling less attached to controlling every detail. You trust more. You surrender more. Not out of weakness, but out of strength. Because you've learned that alignment carries more power than force ever could. Flow isn't about everything being easy. It's about you moving through everything with grace. It's the moment when challenges don't crush you anymore. They reveal how strong your frequency truly is. And here's the beautiful paradox: the higher your frequency rises, the less you need to prove it. You stop chasing signs, stop clinging to external validation, stop asking the world to show you that you're on the right path. Because you feel it, your body knows, your heart knows. Your energy speaks louder than your mind's doubts. In this stage, you might also notice your intuition sharpening like never before. That quiet inner voice that once felt distant now becomes clear. It's not mystical, it's attunement. When the noise of lower frequency fades, your inner guidance has space to speak. You might wake up with a clear sense of what step to take next. You might meet the right person at the right time and know, without logic, that this moment matters. And as you trust this inner compass more, your life begins to unfold in ways that feel guided, not forced. Another powerful shift happens with your relationship to uncertainty. Where once uncertainty felt threatening, it now begins to feel expansive. Instead of asking, "What if it goes wrong?" your frequency invites the question, "What if it goes right?" You stop resisting the unknown and start dancing with it. Because you understand, uncertainty isn't the enemy. It's the canvas where new realities are painted. This is where rising frequency turns from an inner experience into a way of living. You become more intentional with your energy. You guard it, not out of fear, but out of reverence. You choose carefully where your attention goes. Because you understand attention is currency, you stop investing in worry, in endless mental loops, in emotional spirals that drain you. Instead, you begin to pour your energy into presence, into creation, into what expands your soul. You learn to redirect your focus not because you're running away from pain, but because you've outgrown living in it. And slowly, almost quietly, you begin to feel more alive than ever before. You laugh more easily. You breathe deeper. Your steps feel lighter. You trust the unfolding of your life. This doesn't mean you never have hard days. It means hard days don't define you anymore. One of the most profound things about this stage is the way your perspective shifts on everything. Things that once looked like obstacles now look like lessons. Pain that once felt unfair now carries wisdom. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you begin to ask, "What is this teaching me?" And in that shift, you reclaim all the power you once gave away. Relationships take on a different tone too. You're no longer trying to convince others to rise with you. You simply rise, and those meant to meet you at your frequency do. You stop arguing for your worth. You start embodying it. You stop shrinking yourself to fit old spaces. You expand, fully, unapologetically. And maybe the most subtle but powerful sign of all, you start to love being alone. Not in isolation, not as escape, but as a deep, fulfilling relationship with yourself. Solitude becomes sacred. You don't run from silence anymore, you rest in it. Because in that silence, your true frequency hums like a steady heartbeat. At this point, your reality begins to feel like an ever-flowing conversation between your inner state and the universe. What you feel, you attract. What you align with, you create. What you hold in your frequency, you begin to live. And this is where the journey comes full circle. Rising frequency isn't about escaping the human experience. It's about deepening it. It's not about living in a bubble of positivity. It's about walking through life with a stable inner power that can hold both the light and the dark. And still choose love, still choose expansion, still choose trust. When your frequency rises, you don't become invincible. You become aligned. And alignment is the most powerful force there is. It turns fear into fuel. It turns pain into wisdom. It turns ordinary moments into miracles. So if you've felt your old triggers fading, if your inner voice has grown louder, if your world has started to shift, if peace has become more familiar than chaos, if flow is slowly becoming your default, then know this: your frequency is rising. And from here, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes perfect, but because you are no longer at war with it. You are no longer at war with yourself. This is the power of frequency. Not loud, not forced, not flashy. Just real, quiet, steady, undeniable. The kind of power that builds worlds, heals hearts, and rewrites lives, starting with your own.